Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fearless Funnels. My name is Julie, and this is a decision support podcast designed specifically for people who are considering using FG Funnels as their online tech stack. I will say that if you have not watched our class called the Forever Home Tech System Masterclass, I recommend you do that. And you can go to fgfunnels.com for more information on how to sign up for that class. The assumption here is that everyone who's listening to this has attended the class. And even if you haven't, you will get a lot of value out of this podcast because the thing is that we have done this class many, many times, and there's no way to make the tech discussion about online business simple. It's just not a simple topic. And even though we try to get as much done in an hour as possible, there are always tons of questions that come up at the end. And I thought, well, this would be a great way to answer those questions, give people what they're looking for in bite-sized episodes so that they can make a decision. Obviously, as the co-founder of FG Funnels, Kathy and I really do think that for most people that are in online business, FG Funnels is the right next step. However, I want to say that the point of this podcast is to help you make a clear yes or no decision. I want you to feel like, yes, this is right for me, or no, this is not right for me, and feel settled in that decision. And that is my goal with this podcast. As a quick review from the Forever Home Tech System Masterclass, we address 3 key issues that we see in the industry when people are choosing what kind of software. The first is that we see that people often think, I'm small, I'm a beginner, I'm not tech savvy, I'm going to start with something simple, and then I'll move to a bigger, more complex software later. And we say that this is a lot like the way people buy starter homes. You know, they buy the starter home and then they move to the forever home. And we explain that actually that's not a good idea in online business because when you get bigger, moving becomes a nightmare. And it's not going to get any less expensive to move than it is from day one. And a lot of people, they do the math and they think, well, if I do this tool and it's $20 a month, and then when I'm making more, I'll do this tool that's $100 a month. What they are forgetting is that the cost of moving and the drama of moving is going to be very expensive, not to mention the fact that if they don't move, that $20 will probably go up because most of those beginner softwares, they charge more and more the bigger you grow. And so people they just get short-sighted. And we also talk about systems reliability, which is the problem when people try to duct tape software together. And it's actually like a math problem where a system gets less reliable the more pieces you add on, even if those pieces are like 98% reliable. So we talk about that in the webinar a bunch. And then we talk about people who are setting up their forever tech home from day one or as close to day one as possible, and how they are using just a small portion of their tech stack to start, but they have plenty of room to grow. The last piece of the class, which is really important, is talking about what happens when you are overwhelmed and you're already sort of, 3 months, 3 years into your business. You've got a bunch of tech. You don't really know what's talking to what. Are you overpaying? And how stressful the idea of migration can be. And we set up a philosophy of migration that's actually quite different. Instead of just buying your forever home software and then migrating everything and having your business come to a standstill for however long it takes you to migrate, we recommend that you actually build one thing in your new system and get that thing moving and get it in momentum, because what you'll realize is that a lot of the stuff that you thought you had to migrate might actually just be digital distractions and digital clutter, and you don't really need it to make money. And that's really common because we step out into the online business world and we try tactics, and some of them work and some of them don't. And we, think, oh, well, I might need this later. And they just kind of keep it, and it just creates a mess. That is the quick overview of the class. And then usually what we do is we have tons and tons of questions that come because everybody has a slightly different business, a slightly different tech stack, and it can get really overwhelming. Over the next episodes, I am going to tackle all of the questions that come up during these webinars. And the goal here is that if these are questions that you're having, you can run through the different episodes, decide which ones you want to listen to, and get the answers that you need. I'm going to cover things like software replacements, like what does FG Funnels actually replace and what does it not replace? I'm going to talk about questions that come up with technical features like international support, mobile apps, communities, e-commerce stores, things like that. I'm going to do a whole bunch of episodes on migration and support and how you migrate. What are the steps? How you can get support if you need it, how you can hire if you need that. I'm going to also talk about pricing and billing and how you can manage the cost of running an online business. We'll talk about different users. We'll talk about agencies versus just being a single business owner, multi-business accounts, all of that sort of thing. And we'll also talk about business-specific use cases. So what types of businesses do we support and help, and which types are maybe not best for FG Funnels? And I will also talk about the business advice for people who are stuck in overwhelm. So if you're a beginner or if you're overwhelmed, we'll talk a little bit more about digital clutter. We'll also dive into some stuff around AI and all of the things that it does and doesn't do. We'll also talk about our infrastructure, some of the extras that you get, and I'll cover a few last things around data security and compliance and that sort of thing. It's going to be fully comprehensive. You can binge the whole thing, or you can just pick out the episodes. The goal, like I said, is to help you make a decision that you feel secure and safe putting your online business on. So let's get started.